I have to say it. I'm not going to be the Alabama coach. What?
How could you not predict at least 10 to 13 wins for next season is all I'm saying. But again,
Jesus Christ, 13 wins.
I said
you want an opportunity to play, and the Jets are giving me an opportunity to play.
I'm sorry. I just remember that you compared Gesicki to Kelsey. I'm sorry.
I did not. You know what?
About it, I am ready to get hurt again.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Battered Fins fans are back and full motion during this free agency period. I am the bearded fanatic, the host of the Battered Fins fans. That is my co-host, the Battered Jets fan himself, Danny G. Danny, how are you living, good sir?
Pretty great. I'm about to have a Hall of Fame quarterback as my quarterback next season, so I am feeling pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, man. I'm doing amazing. I think that both of our teams are getting really good, and we're going to obviously get into all this free agency talk, rumors, signings, all that good stuff on this episode. Sorry that we've taken a kind of a 2-week hiatus. I've had a litany of things happen over the last couple of weeks, personally, that kept me away from being able to drop this content for you guys. But I'm excited that I was able to find time today during the midst of free agency to come and start talking some Dolphins football with you guys. But Danny, in the middle of free agency, like one of the biggest things before we even started talking about what players have and haven't re-signed for the Miami Dolphins, we were talking about players who we'd want to keep, right? What kind of free agency needs this team needed? And one of the things that is most exciting so far, because I think you felt the same way that I felt, that when we stuck to running the ball, these two gentlemen right here, Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, were doing a pretty bang-up job, even with the O-line that we had in place last season. And guess what? They're both coming back. So the rumors of trading for Dalvin Cook are probably put to bed. The rumors of potentially signing Derrick Henry or trading for Derrick Henry is probably put to bed. I'm very happy with this signing, so I'll just drop my 2 cents on it. Right, they were playing very well for the Miami Dolphins last season. I think if we stuck to a more ground game, a more balanced offense last season, they could have had even better seasons. Remember, Jeff Wilson was a midseason trade acquisition, so I think a full season under his belt of him being a bruiser and then Raheem Mostert being that change of pace, kind of like that old school thunder and lightning that the Giants used to run back in the days. I think being able to implement that into this offense with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill's explosion, if they get to a more balanced offense, this is going to look really good. So I'm very happy with both these guys coming back. How about you?
My understanding is that they both had over 1,000 yards, scrimmage yards for the season. Now, I know that Wilson wasn't all with Miami, but they're obviously versatile players. They provide a lot. And if I'm not mistaken, they both averaged well over 4 yards per carry last year.
They did.
You guys just never ran the fucking ball. So it was playing Madden, like I say it all the time. Mike McDaniel, if you ran to a more balanced attack, it might have been more beneficial to you guys. Not that you guys had a bad offense, but it would have been even better possibly. And I mean, it's great that you guys brought him back. Now you just got to figure out a way to use them a little more.
I agree. And I think one of the things that you mentioned last year, besides the whole Mike McDaniel really loved playing Madden out there, if we could pass the ball, we're going to pass it 80% of the time and then hand it off to our running backs 20% of the time. One of the things that you brought up, and he brought this up, I was a big – I shitted on this offensive line a lot. Like outside of Teron Armstead, Connor Williams, I said, listen – and Robert Hunt. Let me not forget about my boy Robert Hunt. Outside of those three guys, I'm like, the rest of the O-line shit, our backups are shit. Like we need some more help. And you said, yeah, that could probably be the story for the passing. Their strengths are basically running
blocking.
Right, the pass blocking was ineffective, but they were really good at if your running backs are averaging 4.3 yards per carry and 4.4, obviously your run blocking scheme is working really well. So that was, to your point, that was awesome that you brought that up, because obviously not something I looked at when you initially said it. But when you go back and look at it, they were opening up some holes for our running backs. And like you said, again, I know we're beating a dead horse over this comment. We'll keep saying it. If we had a more balanced attack, I think that we could have been even more effective against teams later in the season. But let's move on to something else. One of the things that I talked about a few weeks ago was my 3 potential quarterbacks that I would love to be backing up Tua Tagovailoa. This guy I did not mention because I really thought if he was going to go anywhere, he was going to probably come back and fight for the starting job for the New York Jets. But Danny, Mike effing White has signed on Fort Lauderdale native, is coming back home to be a Tua Tagovailoa's backup. And I'll say when the signing happened, I was actually pretty happy with this signing because you want to talk about a gritty player? Mike White's a gritty player. Talk about playing on 25 broken ribs and still out there trying to throw the ball 40 yards down the field. This guy excites me. The way that the players surround Mike White, like I saw that obviously doing a Jet show with you, the way that players surround him and have so much love for this guy, that's the kind of locker room guy that I want for the Miami Dolphins, and I'm very happy that he is a Miami Dolphin.
Look, the Jets fans loved Mike White. I love Mike White. I thought he was a great quarterback. Okay, let me paraphrase.
Right.
Not a great a great backup quarterback.
Yeah.
He come out, and when he was on the field, I felt like we had a great chance to win. He would move the ball up. He had a great arm. He wasn't mobile, but you know what you want out of a backup quarterback is what you got with Mike White.
Right.
So I think you guys had a great signing. I wasn't expecting you guys to give him so much money. But I think Mike White is a great backup. I honestly thought he was going to end up in LA and be a backup over there since this kid, Mike LaFleur, ended up in LA. So I thought he might go out there with him. But he wanted to come back home. He's a gritty player. He's a great locker room guy. And he's going to end up starting a couple games for you guys next year, one way or another, because, you know, Tua can't stay healthy for 17 games. And let's say he starts 3 or 4 games. I promise you probably have a great chance to win 2 or 3 of those with Mike White under the center. So I think Mike White was a great pickup for you guys.
Danny wouldn't be a Jet fan if he wouldn't just want to throw a little jab at our boy Tua Tagovailoa, who's out there mastering his judo class so he could be well equipped next season to be able to take falls at a better pace. But
when was the last time he played a full season?
But Danny, you know, you bring up a solid point that, you know, he hasn't been able to stay healthy so far in his career with the Miami Dolphins.
It's unfortunate.
And I think, because technically speaking, his body was healthy last season. He was a little bit more swole coming into last season. Ultimately, the concussions is what took him out for those matter of games. I think that's a one-off. And I think this upcoming season, you're not going to have any concussion problems with Tua Tagovailoa.
I think again, no fault of his own. I've said this a million times. There's just some people that are just injury prone.
Yeah.
And his body was great for one season. Is his body going to be great for 2 seasons in a row? Maybe, maybe not. Can you feel confident with that? Definitely not. Are you going to ride him to the end? Of course. Because when he does play, he's played well outside of the last 3 games he played last season. So I think that Mike White was necessary. Mike White was necessary because he is, in my opinion, off the top of my head, if not the best, top 3-4 backup quarterbacks in the league.
I agree. I think the position that Mike White's in to be able to come and play with these offensive weapons is going to be very exciting. If he does have to play 2-3 games this season, I think, like you said, he's going to be able to win those games and put us in positions to win those games. I remember one of the stat lines last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was against the Vikings. He had 6 offensive drives that all went into the red zone consecutively. Now, ultimately, you guys couldn't get into the end zone, but I don't think that when you have the type of talent we do on offense, that would be a problem here. What I'm saying by that point is that I think Mike White gives you enough to be able to get you up and down the field when you need it. But before we move on to what else has happened so far, I want to ask you a question. And I'm just throwing this out there because I read a lot of feedback, and I'm sure you read about it as well, about people saying that it was too soon to pick up Tua Tagovailoa's 5th-year option, that we had time to do this. We didn't have to do this right away. But Danny, I want to drop something on your shoulders and then get your feedback on this.
Okay.
You're talking about a kid who looked really good last season when he was on the field. Like, he literally came into his own under Mike McDaniel's offense and looked really good. Now you're talking about picking up his 5th-year option where he's going to be guaranteed north of $24 million for the 5th year that he's in the league. Now, let me ask you a question. 1, do you agree that it was too soon? And 2, I think the best option was to pick it up because if he does stay healthy, Danny, he's going to cost you a whole lot more if you don't pick up that 5th-year option and you want to end up resigning. You might end up signing this guy to a 4-year, $160 million contract because they just had to pay Daniel Jones for not picking up his 5th option last year. I think the fact that you get away with paying Tua Tagovailoa north of $24 million for a season and then giving him his new contract is probably the smartest way to go about doing this, right?
I don't know. I've come to learn one thing in sports, and at least in the NFL, these contracts mean absolutely nothing.
Right.
So you gave him that 5th year. Okay, so he's with you for
And
the
it's
next
guaranteed.
year.
And it's guaranteed.
So it's guaranteed. But let's say hypothetically, there was a point in the season where we were talking about him possibly being the MVP, him or Jalen Hurts.
Correct.
Neither one of them winning, but that was the conversation.
Right.
If he has an MVP, if he ends up having an MVP type season next year, you don't think he'll ask for an extension or a new contract the next offseason?
No.
Like,
But I'm saying that's for sure. But what I'm saying is if you wouldn't have picked it up, let's say you go into next season, you didn't pick it up. Now for sure you're paying him way more than $24 million is my point. I think the Dolphins got off cheap just giving him $24 million guaranteed. And let's say he does come back and have an MVP season, then you could go into next offseason and work that new contract out. But the fact that you're going, go ahead. The fact that you're going to next season, you're only paying him $24 million when other quarterbacks are getting paid way more than that annually. I think it was a smart move by the Miami Dolphins to pick up that 5th year option.
But the upcoming year is the 4th year, isn't it?
No. Well, I'm sorry. The upcoming year is the 4th year, yes. But
so my point is, if that his 4th year ends up being an MVP type season, the 5th year, you're not going to pay him just 24 mil. He's going to ask for a large contract.
You're absolutely right. But
like all these QBs do.
But the hit for that 5th year is only going to be $24 million. Whatever he gets paid after that is whatever he gets paid after that. My thing is that if you didn't pick it up and he does come this year and has a balling out season, you're going to pay him northwards of that $24 million next year. And you're already paying guys like Bradley Chubb and Tyreek Hill. And Jalen Waddle is coming up as well in a couple of seasons. You're going to be able to have to make room for all these guys. And by the way, Chris Greer has done an amazing job. With the way he gets draft picks. And as people put out there in his memes, Chris Greer on the phone saying, fuck them picks. Because the way he's able to restructure these contracts and make cap room, and we both said the cap room is probably fake. It's probably fake news. The cap room doesn't really exist. But the way that he's able to restructure to be able to get so much cap room, and big shout outs to Teron Armstead, Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, the way they were able to move their money around to be able to make room for new guys coming in, I thought it was pretty awesome. But Danny, my final point, picking up his 5th year option, knowing that you only have to pay him $24 million guaranteed for that upcoming season, is way cheaper than him coming out and balling next year. And now, all right, in 2 years, we're going to pay you way more than $24 million, but at least we know for that 5th year, it's $24 million that you're getting paid.
I think it was a smarter move on his part, right?
For sure.
Because he's not sure if he can stay healthy, so he just guaranteed himself those $24 million that 5th year.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's a smarter move on Tua's part.
Well, let's go to another thing that affects Tua. Where's the O-line help, Danny? Yes, we may be great at run blocking, but one of the things that's affecting your team and my team at the same time, there are some offensive linemen out there that are pretty good that still haven't been picked up. Now, free agency officially does start tomorrow. These signings could come, but when it comes to these signings, I don't care if you get a Derrick Henry, a Dalvin Cook, if you don't have the ability to keep your quarterback protected and upright, what difference does it make? And pass blocking was horrible last season. Teron Armstead and Carla Williams played amazing football. Robert Hunt played amazing football. But the rotating door at left guard, the rotating door at right tackle, those are big points. Now, I'm not saying go out and spend $80 million on a right tackle like the Kansas City Chiefs did, but you have to go get one of these veteran free agents that are available right now and either fill up that left guard or fill up that right tackle position. Because I think that when you go into the draft and you say, oh, no, we'll address it in the draft. Danny, how many years in a row have the Miami Dolphins drafted offensive linemen that just don't pan out?
Those are just question marks.
Right. I think that when it comes to offensive line and defensive line, you're better off attacking it during free agency. And there's some good studs out there that Dolphins should be able to pick up.
Look, I think because Tua's health was the biggest question mark, and honestly, what deterred your season so much last year,
for sure,
the number one priority should be, outside of signing Tua for that 5th year, is making sure that he's healthy enough to fulfill the 4th year so that 5th year makes sense. So obviously the offensive line should be a priority. So instead of trading for Jalen Ramsey, instead of looking into Jordan Poyer, instead of filling up, I forgot this kid from the Titans that you guys got. Like instead of
David Long,
instead of beefing up the defense, let's defend Tua. Make sure that he is okay, because that's the priority. You guys are going to go as far as Tua takes you.
Right. I want to see Tua stand in the backfield like those many seasons where we saw Tom Brady on the Patriots, and you got mad. And you got mad how long he was standing upright back there just looking, just looking, just looking. I want that for Tua Tagovailoa because I feel like if he would have that type of protection, he would be even more successful.
But that takes time to build. And I don't think you're going to have necessarily that, but you could improve.
Right.
And that needs to happen. That
Instead
needs
of
to happen,
instead
and
of
it has to be a priority.
what we've seen from Brian Tannehill and Tua so far, the last two quarterbacks for the Miami Dolphins, that basically there's instances where they literally hike the ball and people are in their face right away. Now that's going to happen sometimes, with blitz and all that, not being able to pick them up. But the fact that there was times where it's 4 linemen rushing and Tua was already running for his life, that we need to fix, and that's just my point. But Danny, you mentioned it. Let's talk about it. The exciting news: we could potentially be having a defensive backfield of Xavier Howard, Javon Holland, Brandon Jones, Jalen Ramsey, and a potential Jordan Poyer.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I know a lot of talk, and we've talked about at lengths about the off year that Xavier Howard had. But the fact that he didn't have Byron Jones across from him because the guy's a bum. And according to sources, his injuries got so bad that he could not run after that Week 4 game against the Bengals, where we clearly saw him jogging up and down the sideline. We're like, all right, this guy's only a couple games away, and then all of a sudden, gone for the season. The fact that he gets a player the caliber of Jalen Ramsey opposite of Xavier Howard, whether Jalen Ramsey's the one, whether Xavier Howard is the one, the fact that it doesn't really matter in the Vic Fangio defense that he runs, because he runs a lot more zone. He runs a lot of cover 4, cover 6. He doesn't blitz as often. He uses 3-4 lineman rush. Right. Mm-hmm. I think that type of defense, and then you're talking about Javon Holland, sir. And you're talking about Brandon Jones back there. Kader Kohu in the nickel. He had a very impressive. I know Kader Kohu is one of the guys that you really liked coming out of Texas Tech something. Like he was like literally came out of nowhere. And the fact that he played so well as a rookie, undrafted rookie at that, I think it spells, I don't want to say trouble, but I'm going to go with trouble. Fuck it. Trouble for a lot of other offenses because you got to pick out where you're going to throw in the middle of this defensive backfield.
You throw to Xavier Howard.
This guy's so disrespectful.
Look, Xavier Howard, until he plays better, I'm not going to believe it until I see it.
He only had one bad year. He only had one bad year, sir.
But it's a difference if you say he had a bad stretch, he had a bad game, he had a bad first half of the year.
Right.
He had a bad season.
Yep. And he was injured a lot. Playing through injuries, man. Playing through injuries.
Okay. Well, maybe that's the case, and maybe he'll be healthy next year.
Yeah.
But Xavier Howard, on top of taking a step back because he wasn't the guy, because Jalen Ramsey's going to be on the other side, he's going to get picked on a lot. He's going to be forced to prove himself because he's going to see a lot of balls thrown his way. I agree. So we're going to learn really early on if he's back or if this is just the new Xavier Howard.
I want you to play devil's advocate for me real quick and put on a Miami Dolphins hat.
Okay.
Let's say that Xavier Howard plays at the caliber that he played the year before this past season, where he had Byron Jones on the opposite, and they were basically he was
a true Pro Bowler,
right? When he was locking down half the field. When you look at this defense, and you look at a Christian Wilkins, and you look at a Jalen Phillips, and you look at a Bradley Chubbs, and Zach Zieler's coming back as well. Our biggest weakness, and I've talked about this at length too, is our linebacker core right now. Now, granted, they signed David Long to come be our linebacker. I looked him up; he has good numbers. But nobody's going to jump out the sheet at you, He had good run. By the way, he had really good run stuffing numbers. I believe he was the second linebacker ranked in run stuffs last year. So that's pretty exciting. But you remember, our linebackers are getting picked on as well. Duke Riley was getting picked on a lot with tight ends that came down here. He got re-signed. That one's kind of questionable to me. Somebody gave it a B minus grade. I think that's more like a C minus. That's neither here nor there. But when you talk about that defensive backfield, there has to be some semblance of Sam Madison, Brock Marion, Brian Walker, Patrick Surtain vibes coming off here if they all play at the caliber that their names have been playing up to this point.
No, most definitely. You guys have a solid defensive. Xavier Howard took a step back. Yeah. Jalen Ramsey, I've heard a lot of haters saying that Jalen Ramsey is no longer a top 10 cornerback.
Gunny Gumby.
I think he is a top 10 cornerback, but I will say he used to be the clear number 1 in the league.
For sure.
That he isn't anymore.
Okay.
So
I could deal
what
with
I'm
that.
saying is right. So it's top 10, you're still fucking good.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that if he took a step back and Xavier Howard took a step back, yes, you guys still have a great starting defensive backfield, but you guys are imagining Xavier Howard in his prime. You're imagining the number one cornerback in the league, Jalen Ramsey. So that's what you're imagining. Are you guys still going to be great? Probably. Am I going to predict that the Dolphins defense is going to be great? The last 2 years I did that. I'm not going to do that again. The last 2 years,
I think you should go the other end. By the way, they're
Yeah.
going to be one of the worst defenses next year.
I'm not going to say one of the worst, but I'm definitely not going to say one of the best because the last 2 years
It's bit you in the ass.
your,
It's bit you in the
your
ass for sure.
defense is going to be so good. It's going to carry you to the playoffs.
To the playoffs.
And I'm not doing it again. Even
No.
though this year it actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm still going to wait to see.
Wait
They
for
have
it.
to
Wait
prove
for
it.
it.
Yeah, they have to
Let's
prove
let's
it.
wait
I'm not
8
saying it
weeks. Let's wait 8 weeks and then you drop it.
So Jordan Poyer, if he does join, which I've been
Oh my
saying
God,
since
let's talk
last
about
summer,
that. Right, you have.
he's going to be amazing. He's Pro Bowl every year. Him, Javon Holland back there. Like, you guys are set as far as safety goes. You guys might have the best safety duo in the league. The best cornerback duo, no. But the best
Right.
safety duo, it's up there for sure. Defensive backs, you guys are set. Obviously, defensive line, you guys are deep.
Yep.
The linebackers are the question.
Oof, yes.
And Bradley Chubb with his contract, I still don't know if he's going to be worth that contract that he has. I don't believe in Bradley Chubb.
I think a lot of people came out and tried to defend it, like, oh, well, now he got Vic Fangio back. And people forget that, wow, Vic Fangio was in
Didn't play
Denver.
well with Vic Fangio.
He didn't play great and he couldn't stay healthy either. So it's like, I get the excitement. I do. And nobody wants the Dolphins to succeed more than I do. But what I'm saying is stop jumping the ship. Wait until these players get on the field and we see how they mesh together and they run this new defensive scheme. It might be rough for the first 2 weeks. And there are a lot of people, oh my God, look at this bullshit. We gave all this money away. They look like crap.
Blitz. Why aren't they blitzing?
Right. It's like, guys, please fucking practice patience, man. Eventually, when they start gelling is when it's going to get exciting. Don't expect that they're going to come out next season and just start 6-0. Like, don't do that to yourselves. Just wait.
I will tell you.
Wait and see.
I looked up Vic Fangio, and I think we talked about it on the episode that we had from Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
Every team that he's gone to,
Yes.
it could have been the Bears that were literally ranked 32nd when he got there.
Mm-hmm.
He got them to a top 3 defense within 2 years.
Yep.
Sometimes in that first year. So with the names that he has on this defense,
Yep.
I have no doubt that the Dolphins could be and should be a top 5 defense.
Which is, by the way, which is the least he's ranked has been top 5. So I'm glad you said it like that. That is the least that man has ran a defense.
Right. And again, he's taken over when he took over when he was with the Bears. They were literally ranked 32nd. When he left, they were first. Like, this man is a defensive genius.
Yes.
But I don't know what exactly happened last year on the road. I'm not sure why your defense played different on the road than home. I'm sure that was just an aberration this year. That'll get corrected next year. I think your defense is going to be great with these new additions, Patrick Ramsey. If you guys get Jordan Poyer, I see no weaknesses outside of maybe outside linebacker.
Yeah,
I think you guys are set, honestly, defensively, and it's kind of scary, honestly.
I want, and we're about to cut out here. This is all I want by the time we record our next episode. One of these very good veteran offensive linemen to get picked up for the Miami Dolphins. If we do nothing else in free agency, and we just sign one of these offensive linemen, whether it be a right tackle or a left guard, just fill one of these holes. I could be fine with even an Austin Jackson coming back and playing right tackle next year. If you fill in a left guard hole or vice versa, I could deal with the Liam Eichenberg because he's still playing on a rookie deal. As long as you sign an effective right tackle, I will be completely happy. But Danny, as always, as we're about to tune out, I appreciate you coming out here talking some Dolphins football.
Real quick.
Yeah.
If we hit mid-April, we're getting ready for the draft.
Yeah.
And you guys didn't address the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Do you consider this offseason a failure as far as free agency goes? Because you got Patrick Ramsey. There's a possibility that you get Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
Who the hell's Patrick Ramsey?
No idea.
All right. So Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
You guys might get Jordan Poyer. Would you still consider this offseason as far as free agency goes a failure if you do not fill in the offensive line needs?
I wouldn't. I think we dropped the ball not signing one of these stud offensive linemen to fill in one of these holes, whether it be right tackle or left guard. But being that they got both their running backs back, They got somebody to back up Tua Tagovailoa. Then they could potentially get Jordan Poyer as well. There is no way I could call it a failure. I would say we definitely dropped the ball. I get it. Listen, Joe Douglas is a really good GM. Chris Greer.
So is Chris Greer.
Right. Chris Greer has knocked it out the park sometimes with his picks, but offensive line has been something that's not gone very. It's kind of like you guys drafting quarterbacks. I think Chris Greer's kryptonite is drafting offensive linemen. And I think that's been a problem so far. So if it got to the draft and we didn't pick up one of these offensive linemen, yes, I would consider that we dropped the ball, but I would not consider it a failure.
I'm going to leave you with this little nugget.
Yeah.
I still think Tom Brady is your starting quarterback next year.
Jesus Christ. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the Battered Fins fans episode talking free agency. I am the bearded fanatic. That was the Battered Jet fan himself, Denny G, who's very excited for the potential of Aaron Rodgers maybe traded over to the New York Jets in a couple of weeks.
Is there a chance that both of our games are prime time next year?
I think so. The Dolphins Jets is always a good show. Maybe not that last game of the season, but I think that
because we had nobody playing.
Right. I think if we have that talent on both sides, we have to have a prime time. Whether it's Thursday night, we should have a primetime game. But yes, I would agree with you. Sir, always a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, if you tuned in for the last 26 minutes to listen to the Battered Fins Fan Podcast, I appreciate you. Follow us on Twitter. We're going to be dropping more content, more free agency news, more draft news.
The new year started.
We're off and rolling, baby. Battered Fins fans, checking out Bearded Fanatic, Battered Jet fan. Peace.
Take flight.